Let's get to talking about NAO EGOKORO. Like Mishima, she's a character I mentioned a number of times in previous videos, and now we'll finally get to see why she was so important. Nao's the type of character who can't seem to catch a break, but in the same vein as Reiko, you do get to see her grow past the hardships, and does her best for the sake of her friends. So with that out of the way, let's start with some introductions. Nao was brought into the death game along with Professor Mishima. Right off the bat, she makes it clear that Mishima isn't a bad person. She cares for him very much, and states that he is the reason why she is able to attend an art college. Although she seemed apprehensive to trust people like Keiji, she really values friendships, and she was able to make a couple new ones over the course of the game. But I think the best place to start is by talking about the relationship she has with Mishima. As mentioned in my Mishima analysis, Nao really looked up to him, and attributed much of her success to him. So you can imagine the emotions she felt when he died so suddenly. It was something no one could have expected, and it was honestly kind of scary to see her freak out. She got tunnel vision and thought that everyone was going to take the professor away from her, including Sarah, whom she trusted the most. Luckily, Sarah was able to calm Nao down while also helping her to accept what happened and move on. Of course, it wasn't easy. Nao knew that what she did was selfish and only caused trouble for others, but she didn't know what else to do or who to turn to. Sarah had to tell her straight. Mishima was dead, but that doesn't mean Nao should give up either. Instead, she should focus on getting out of this game alive and finishing the painting she'd been working on. Following Mishima's death, there was a flashback sequence in which he told Nao about his past. Although things didn't go his way, the one lesson he learned was to embrace failure and not to be afraid of it. People can always improve themselves. It's just a matter of whether or not you have the courage to move forward. There's nothing to fear in failure. A person's life doesn't end there. As long as you live on, happiness will surely come to you. This was the message, among others, that he wanted his student to understand, and so Nao was able to seal her resolve and regroup with the others. When she got to the second floor, she was surprised to see an AI of Mishima whom she could talk to. She told him about the death game along with Sarah and the other candidates. It was clear to Mishima that Nao was surrounded by people who'd help each other, and so he told her to do the same, to treasure the friends she's made as well. She acknowledges him by saying that she doesn't want to be a burden to Sarah and Reiko, the two people who've helped her the most, and tells him that she'd be leaving for good. Nao didn't want to be tied to the past or the pain anymore. Mishima then logs off, feeling nothing but pride that his student was able to be such a strong person all on her own. Unbeknownst to Nao, her actions actually reached Sarah and Reiko, as they both wanted to be as strong as her, especially after both of them had lost someone precious to them. We see this strength persist through to the end of the second main game. She certainly feels a lot more composed and conscientious of others, mainly of Reiko. When Sarah and Keiji returned with Nao from the kitchen, it was Reiko who cheered her up. During the first main game, Nao was cornered by So's barrage of attacks, questioning the relationship she had with Mishima and the possibility of her being manipulated by the kidnappers. It was Reiko who defended Nao and told everyone about the truth of what really happened during the second trial. At the time, Nao was as vulnerable as Kana. She was still shaken up by his death and couldn't refute So's claims because she didn't want to admit that she played a part in killing Mishima. With all this in mind, Nao wanted to return the favor. After escaping the Room of Lies, Nao was the first person to question Reiko's behavior. She noticed that she was a lot colder, and that she was hiding something because of her wounds. Whatever the case, Nao wanted to help Reiko shoulder some of that burden because they're friends. When Mishima's monitor was smashed, Nao told everyone not to look for the culprit. At the time, she wasn't sure what had happened. She just knew that Reiko had something to do with it. When she found out what happened during the final attraction, I think she realized how much Reiko looked out for her. Nao was still tempted to go back to the monitor room, despite saying otherwise. But Reiko knew it was for the best for both Nao and Mishima to move on. I want to believe that this is the reason why Nao didn't tell anyone to look for the culprit, but it's totally possible that she didn't want others to worry for her because Mishima had essentially been killed a second time. She resolved not to go back to Mishima, and so she didn't want others to think that she still needed him for support. In Reiko's route, she was fuming with anger after losing her brother. NAO was the one who stayed behind to comfort her, but I feel like her character really peaked in Alice's route. She understood how Alice felt because Reiko and NAO had become close leading up to her death. Both of them treasured Reiko dearly, but it was different for Alice. He had to live with the fact that he could never apologize to his sister and began to go deeper into despair. A path. I've long since passed up such a thing. Even so, I stubbornly lived on because I thought someday my parents or Reiko would repay me. There's no path anymore. For now, she had lost two very close people in her life, but she wasn't going to let that stop her from going home. Let's go, Alice. I need to deliver this. There's surely someone else waiting who treasures Reiko as much as us. Alice, please, you take one of these too. I'm going. I need to move forward. Everything that has happened to NAO has accumulated in these few lines. There's just so much power behind these words, and they exude so much resolve and conviction. She's really taken what Mishima has taught her and used it when it was needed most. Instead of dwelling on her failure of not being able to save her friend, she used this moment as a reminder to not let it happen to anyone else. And although Alice wasn't the most cooperative person in the beginning, the love towards her sister was real, and so NAO chose to cherish him as well. She knows how Alice feels, which was all the more reason to help him move forward. NAO returned from the final attraction, determined to find a way out. She ends up teaming up with So to try and hack the death game. Again, this whole scenario showed her taking initiative and not wanting to be a burden to Sarah and the others. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, which is something we know all too well. The remaining candidates scrambled to find evidence of Gashu's transgression. It was the only way to delay the main game from continuing. That's when the documents displaying the names and percentages were brought into question. While there were 20 participants, only 16 were listed on the roster. The names that were left out were Kai, Kugi, Joe, and NAO. These four did not qualify as candidates to win the death game. They were irregularities that Gashu wanted removed. During the 5th trade, Kana was supposed to receive Sarah's sacrifice, but instead received a commoner. Gashu had intercepted the trade and gave the sacrifice to NAO, seeing as the sacrifice has a high chance of death. With Keiji being the keymaster, Sarah was now left with a choice. Does she vote for NAO and escape with her? Or does she let her die? If Sarah doesn't vote for her, NAO uses her final moments to say goodbye. If you chose Alice's route, she'd tell him that she was the one to initiate the second trade, using Reiko's tokens to take Kyutaru's commoner and give him the sacrifice. Reiko was once again able to save her. However, she was not able to escape death at the very end. NAO expires, but she was able to finish the painting she'd wanted to give to Mishima, with Reiko by her side. However, if Sarah does vote for her, it's not a pleasant sight. A sea of red unfolds before my eyes. There's no salvation. Tearfully, Saflin carried out exacting executions, one after another. Everyone's struggling, and anguish screams. I didn't listen to them. There's no way I could. Keiji, Gin, Kana, So, Kyutaro, Reiko. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This option is definitely the more morbid one. It ends with the two girls completely broken, having to live with hands stained with blood. It's pretty sad that no matter which route you take, NAO doesn't necessarily have a happy ending, and even towards the end, she wanted to live so badly that she was willing to kill everyone else. All she wanted was to finish the painting and to prove to herself that she's changed and not to let the professor down. Whether or not this was selfish, I'll leave that for you to decide.